Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. Since Ukraine War Frontline update for the 20th of March 2024. If you don't know what the lines on my map mean, please pause the video and check out the key on the screen at the moment. Okay, let's go to the map, and my goodness, there's not a lot of change across the entire frontline. Now, a couple of reasons for this. One, like I've been saying for a few days, it looks like the Russians might have culminated to some degree. Two, the Russians mainly on the ground, the Russians will have been trying to push for victory in a number of places due to the March 17th elections. And with those elections being gone, there is no pressure for them to take large amounts of land or even small amounts of land at the cost of many troops and pieces of equipment. And three, Zaporizhia or Belgorod, the Russian problems that they will be having in advancing, given the time of year, the melting snows and the mud that ensues. That seasonal mud is, I believe, in full flow at the moment and presenting quite a few problems. So that will mean that the numbers we're seeing in the loss video that I do at the beginning of the day, those numbers will be lower in terms of the loss of each side. And that will also reflect as not a lot of movement on the front lines. Okay, before we go down to front lines that are within Ukraine, let's talk about what's going on in Belgorod particularly. Now, over the last few days, there's been an awful lot of attention given to the border areas with artillery and bombs. Aviation has been very active across the border, as well as these villages getting flattened in some cases, as well as today there was a Kh-59 missile that flew into Kharkiv and has caused quite a bit of damage. So I think that's going to be a retaliation to the sorts of activity that is taking place with the Free Russia units. Now, they are still active. There's still footage coming out. I don't know where they are, whether they still control the places that are claimed. There's some footage that's just come out of, I think, Kherson here. So Kherson is just here, over the border from Avdiivka, which was flattened with something like, 340 shells, just absolutely flattened there. But anyway, the Free Russia legions are active that's just inside the Sumy Oblast, or at least the Ukrainian side of the border is. So they are active there in probably the outskirts of Kherson. Not really sure. There's some footage coming out of Russian soldiers trying to storm a house where apparently the Russian Volunteer Corps was stationed. I can't show you this footage, but they end up, I think, retreating away from here, the Russians, after you see some footage of them at the side of the building. There's four of them here. One guy gets a grenade out and tries to throw it, I think, through the door, but it bounces and then falls here. Three of them run to there because they realise the grenade's going to go off, and this guy right next to it doesn't realise at all, and the grenade explodes, and essentially it's going to have killed him. Big old grenade explosion. Then the rest of this area gets hit with either mortars or drones. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, it appears that the activity here is curtailed, cut short, and they don't succeed in storming the house and then kind of retreat by all accounts. Anyway, that's just one anecdotal bit of evidence. I don't really know what that tells you. Russian Volunteer Corps fighter inside Kherson, footage of that, which would suggest if that is the last sort of 12 hours or so, 24 hours, and they are still in Kherson, quite where I'm not 100% sure. And then Russia's moved to a new stage of the war and is bombing itself, which is much better. Bild provides a video of Russian aircraft striking the village of, again, Kherson. So it seems to be where it's happening, and they are, aviation bombing Kherson. I guess the very least of what's happening is that this village is being rendered uninhabitable. Just going forward, Kherson, if the Russians are bombing it with aviation, and they are no doubt shelling it, and mortars are active and drones, then the war has truly come to Russia. whether there's any long-term utility for the Ukrainians doing this, I wouldn't know yet. But it's certainly Kherson is where it's happening. And this is supposedly a Russian Lancet destroying a Ukrainian T-80, which is used in the attack in the Belgorod region. So that might be, Kherson might be somewhere else, but it's supposedly a Ukrainian T-80. I can't talk to the provenance of that claim or its accuracy, but nonetheless, both sides will be losing. You'd hope that the Russians would be losing more, but I'm not sure they are. There's one tally that has the pro-Ukrainian Russians having lost more equipment than the Russians, in which case you are left wondering, well, is this a worthwhile project? Nonetheless, it is seemingly continuing to happen, at least in the Kherson area. I haven't heard of any of the other places explicitly over the last 24 hours. And then as we come to the northeastern axis from Kupiansk to Svatovo to Crimea, there's nothing really to report. Indeed, the ISW, there's a lot of paragraph going on here, but it doesn't tell you anything really, just which forces are where. There's just no movement in that northeastern axis. There's no movement in the Bakhmut area. Positional engagements continue there. There's no real movement. There's not too much movement in the Avdiivka area, but this is where most of the detail is given in the ISW. So we'll go all the way from Kupiansk past Svatovo, Crimea, past Bakhmut, where again, to have nothing happening in Ivaniska for another day is just really good news for the Ukrainians. And we get to Avdiivka. There's a minor change for the Deep State Maps map. Frontline has been clarified, is the claim there. So I don't think that's anything that's happened. There's no attack there, but they are actually agreeing with Surat Maps' claims about what's happening north of Orlivka. And as far as Avdiivka is concerned, yes, the Russians control Orlivka, but when it gets outside of there, it turns into grey zone. We'll go now and look at what Surat Maps has for Avdiivka. This is Orlivka, this is Tonyenka down there. So you can see their claim is that the Ukrainians are pulling out of Tonyenka and up to this river here. And then at Orlivka, they are meeting the Russians who are going north from Orlivka, coming down, the Ukrainians coming down from Semenivka. So the claim is the Ukrainian army retreated towards the Derna River and began withdrawal from the northern part of Tonyenka. In addition, the Russian army began the attacks to Ukrainian positions north of Orlivka. Let's put that on my map. So coming out of Orlivka, they are moving north towards Semenivka, and the Ukrainians are meeting them there, trying to repel them. And then out of Tonyenka, the Ukrainians are retreating back to Umanska direction and across the river. That could well be happening. Not confirmed by anyone else yet, really, although it's what is to be expected in this area, where, as I keep saying, the Ukrainians are going to pull back behind the river for topographical safety, using the relief to their advantage. Right. As for other claims, we'll go to the Institute for the Study of War. Geolocated footage published yesterday shows that Russian forces recently advanced on the northwestern edge of the Pervomaisky dam in Pervomaisky, southwest of Avdiivka. So that's coming out from that area and going to here. So that. I presume that's going to be the Pervomaisky dam area. We'll see where that has been geolocated. So fighting in the southern encirclement of Avdiivka, a serviceman of the armed forces of the Russian Federation under fire from an FPV drone from the armed forces of Ukraine in the northern part of Pervomaisky at the dam of the Novoavdiivska Stavka. Slowly work my way through some of these words. I try. I'm very trying. And that is exactly there, which is, it doesn't really prove any of the mapping claims here because it can be interpreted in many ways. Yep, there's a human being there and he's been hit by a FPV drone. Does that mean that they control that area? Is that someone that's moved across into the grey zone? Could be either. But there's a geolocation that could either support Surat Maps or support Deep State Maps or support Avdiivka. Nonetheless, I'll just let you know that for shits and giggles. Right, so that is what has happened there, and that's pretty much the end of the Avdiivka information. A few other things going on there several mill bloggers amplifying claims that the Russians have made some gains, but have faced challenges in fully consolidating control over the settlement on Orlivka due to Ukrainian counterattacks. So that wouldn't be surprising at all. But other than that, not too much else. Positional engagements, then going further down to the south, indeed, until you get to that's the rest of the map, as according to Institute for the Study of War, there are positional engagements for the rest of the entire front line. So no gains for either side around Mariinka, Krasnohorivka, Novomikhailivka, nothing around the Velika Novosilka salient. There is some changes just come out an hour ago from Surat maps. We'll get there in a second. And then no changes to the Dnipro River at all. So the Institute for the Study of War is just saying everything else is positional. We will just focus on what Surat maps has just said. Situation in the Zaporizhia front, small corrections were made at Robotna, in which the Russian army control more area in the centre of the settlement. The level of destruction is huge, and there are not many places to consolidate positions. In addition, the Ukrainian army continues launching counterattacks from the northern part, which stop Russian troops taking the rest of the location there. So here we have Robotna, the village of Robotna, where, according to Surat maps, the Russians have taken this extra area and actually that field there as well. I have to admit that I didn't put a pin there, but they've taken, as according to Surat maps, this area. Now, they are claiming that Ukrainians are fighting back from the north and through the settlement to try and dislodge the Russians, or at least repel them. We'll see how that goes. And that's pretty much the end of any of the movements on the front line. The final thing is just to go to the ISW to see what they say about Krinky. And, here we go. So, positional engagements everywhere else, including Robotna, even though Surat maps has some update from an update from there. Positional engagement, says the ISW, continued on the left bank of the Dnipro River, including near Krinky. Yesterday, a Russian mill blogger claimed that a small number of Ukrainian forces remain in Krinky, and that the majority of Ukrainian forces on the east bank of Kherson Oblast hold positions west of the settlement in the coastal and forested areas. Russian mill bloggers claimed that Ukrainian forces continue to operate in the dacha areas near Antonivsky roadway bridge. We talked about that yesterday. So this is interesting. So what they're basically saying is that the Ukrainians are still around Krinky, but they're mainly in this region of both trees and river delta, rather than being in this location, the location of Krinky and the settlement and the houses and the industrial units that are there. That's from a Russian source, of course. So take all the claims with a pinch of salt from either side. Dachi area here, the claim is that the Ukrainians are operating there, and this is what we heard from Brandon Mitchell in his talk to the Times radio show yesterday. So that's second mention of Dachi in the last 2 days. So it clearly appears that the Ukrainians are active there. Right, thank you for watching. That's enough from me. Please like, subscribe and share. Really appreciate all your support. Appreciate your kind words about my health this morning and my MRI scan that was successful, and my neurologist talking to me in a way that gives me a good boost to continue what I'm doing, which is keeping my brain very active. That's really important. I just need to keep my body active, so I'm going to go now and get myself a cup of tea and then get on that treadmill. Take care, everybody. Speak soon.